Be prepared. 2026 will test what you say before it tests what you do. The speed of consequence has changed. Where once a whispered idea might have time to take root, this year ideas ripple like pebbles on thin ice. The slightest crack becomes an opening. If you are spiritually attuned, if you carry a calling or a growing edge inside you, the universe is nudging you to guard four things with a new kind of discipline. These are not secrets for secrecy's sake. They are safeguards for momentum, for integrity, for the quiet power that wants to reorganize your life without an audience. You are going to hear exactly which four things the universe is asking you to protect, why exposure now carries outsized risk, and how to shield each one without becoming paranoid or manipulative. This is practical guidance, mindset, boundaries and habits you can practice starting today. If this message lands on you, subscribe to stay aligned with 2026 guidance and keep receiving these patterns as things accelerate. Secret 1. Guard your next move. There are ideas that are seeds, and then there are plans that require soil, water and sunlight in a particular order. Your next move, the pivot, the launch, the step change, is an energetic seed. If you plant it in a public field too early, birds of projection will peck at it and wind will scatter the soil. In 2026, speaking your plan to the wrong crowd is not merely awkward. It invites predictive envy, premature tests, and energetic interference. People hear potential and react to the future you describe. Some react with genuine curiosity and helpful feedback. Others react with fear, competition, or a subtle recalibration that alters their behavior in ways that derail momentum. Why is this especially risky now? The rhythm of the collective has shortened, information travels faster, people model behavior more quickly, and social feedback loops are amplified. A single conversation can become a ripple that echoes through networks and invites comparisons, mimicry, or passive sabotage. The universe responds to the charge you create when you speak. A plan publicly voiced sends a signal that the road is paved when in truth, it may still be under construction. How this shows up: you tell 5 acquaintances about a business pivot. Weeks later, you notice the tone around you shifting. Partners hesitate, clients suggest safer options, and someone close to you mirrors the idea, offering a competing version. Or you announce a spiritual service you intend to offer, and the pattern of demands around you changes before your infrastructure is ready, burning you out. Practical guardrails you can use today. First, delay broad disclosure until you have small proofs, prototype, pilot, or altered behavior that demonstrates the plan is working in private. Consider a rule. Wait until you have enough evidence for one measurable shift before telling more than one trusted person. Second, test with a single, vetted confidant who understands energetic boundaries, someone who asks clarifying questions rather than projecting their story onto yours. Choose this person for discretion and discernment, not zeal. Third, hold your plan as an energetic seed rather than a finished thing. Practice describing it in present tense to yourself and to no one else. Let your actions, not your announcements, be the evidence. Use small experiments, move quietly, collect data, iterate. Your outward silence around the next move is not cowardice, it is strategic restraint. The energy you preserve by not broadcasting becomes the fuel that carries the project forward when you finally reveal it at scale. Between these moments, pay attention to the mechanics. Predictive envy is a pattern where people respond to your potential rather than your present state. It's often subtle, polite curiosity that becomes pressure to accelerate, or modeled behavior that crowds the room. Learn to recognize whether feedback is calibration or a reaction to future success. If someone's curiosity quickly becomes a demand for specifics, test their motives with soft, private boundaries. If it drains you, it's a leak. That leads us to the second secret. Secret 2, guard deep spiritual insights and blessings. There are revelations that are surface level and useful to share, and there are cosmic intimacies, insights that touch the core of your soul and reorient your internal systems. These deeper revelations are not trophies, they are transmutations. When you publicize a real inner breakthrough, the energy that birthed it can be externalized into spectacle, opinion, or debate. The moment an intimate shift becomes content, it risks being translated into someone else's narrative about you, diluted by commentary, or turned into a performance that slowly drains the original power. Why is this dangerous in 2026? The cultural appetite for raw authenticity is high, and platforms incentivize immediate disclosure. In an accelerated year, responses multiply faster and louder, often before you've integrated the change inwardly. A blessing that was meant to be a private recalibration can become a public storyline that invites unsolicited interpretations, tests, or even envy that seeks to neutralize the very thing you received. A common scenario: you experience a profound insight, a reframing of a wound, a sudden clarity about a relationship, and you post a long, heartfelt message. Comments flood in. Some are supportive, others interrogate, and a few attempt to reframe your experience to make themselves feel better. The attention transforms the insight into everyone's problem and robs you of the safe container you needed to continue integrating it. 3 practical guardrails to protect deep spiritual gifts. First, learn to distinguish surface-level insights, shareable, from soul-level ones, protected. Use a simple test. If the insight rearranges how you see yourself and requires time to integrate, treat it as private for at least a season. If it solves a practical issue or offers immediate value to others without destabilizing you, it may be safe to share. Second, create a small, sanctified space where you process. This could be a confidential mentor, a spiritual director, a therapist, or a trusted peer group bound by explicit confidentiality. Third, limit public framing to the outer lesson only. Keep the inner mechanics private. For example, share that you're learning about boundaries without narrating the intimate history that birthed that learning. Discernment markers matter. Someone who asks clarifying questions to help you integrate is likely well-meaning. Someone who immediately offers their story to overshadow yours or insists on public validation is probably a drain. Protect your inner altar. The universe often protects gifts by gifting them in quiet. Let them deepen before you display them. Secret 3. Guard your transformation and identity shifts. Identity is porous. In 2026, who you are becoming can be yanked back toward old patterns by the simple act of announcing the change too early. When you tell the world you are a different person, I'm no longer X, I'm now Y, you release a signal that invites the present environment to test that claim. People you've known for years will continue to treat you by your old label until your new behavior produces consistent, undeniable evidence. Worse, an early declaration can anchor you to the past by eliciting reactions that keep you performing the old identity in order to reassure others. Think of identity shifts as a slow, geological process, not a press release. They require erosion of old habits, the formation of new neural pathways, and relational recalibration. When you announce before the ground underfoot has changed, your audience will unconsciously demand proof, recreate the old conditions, or subtly sabotage, because your new claim threatens their map of you. Example: you announce you're done with people-pleasing and expect relationships to adjust. Instead, you're met with confusion and pressure. Friends react the way you would if someone else declared a change. They test, tease, or insist. You find yourself apologizing more to keep the peace, and the identity you declared becomes the script you're expected to perform prematurely. 3 tactical guardrails to navigate identity shifts. First, embody in private first. Implement daily rituals that align with the new self. This could be a 5-minute morning boundary practice, a new refusal script, or a consistent behavior change for 30 days. Second, manage close relationships with intention. Share the change with a few select people who are likely to support and adjust their behavior, and ask them to hold you accountable privately. Third, let public language reflect completed behaviors, not intentions. When the new habits are visible and sustainable, the public narrative will catch up. Say less about the identity and more through actions. Your life will speak faster than your language. A discernment tip. Notice whether your declaration produces relief inside you or an external pressure to perform. If it feels like adrenaline, slow down. If it feels like a settled knowing that shows up in daily choices, you're ready to let the public in. Secret 4. Guard your releases and detachments. Letting go is an art. Announcing a release, whether a breakup, a resignation, an end to a pattern, does not reliably close energetic cords. In many cases, public explanations keep the cord active by inviting debate, persuasion, and reactivation. The more you explain, the more you rehearse the history, and the more likely the person or pattern you're trying to leave will have an opening to reassert itself. Why is this particularly urgent in 2026? Social platforms and swift networks create pressure to narrate endings instantly. That public narrative can become a pressure point that pulls you back into arguments, apologies, or attempts to justify. The universe will push you through releases to rebalance your life, but if you expose the process too early, you create an audience that fuels the old attachment. A typical example. You post about ending a partnership online, thinking clarity will free you. Instead, comments flood with opinions, unsolicited advice, and efforts to mediate. The other party, seeing the public explanation, doubles down or explains their version, which resurrects old dynamics. Rather than an exit, the public version becomes a stage for re-engagement. Practical guardrails for healthy release. First, end privately when possible. Perform the release within your immediate circle before making public statements. Second, use changed behavior as the signal rather than an announcement. Exit patterns without comment until the new boundaries hold for a sustained period. Third, if you must explain, keep the explanation minimal and values-focused rather than narrative-heavy. State what you will no longer accept and what you will choose instead, without detailing the wound or the other party's behavior. Energy hygiene practices help here. Daily rituals that sever habitual reactivity, journaling, somatic practices, breathwork, or professional support make private release powerful. Remember that action is the closure. The universe can respond to a quiet exit. It often rewards clean detachment with quicker recalibration. Across all 4 secrets, there are shared mechanisms at play, patterns that make oversharing particularly hazardous in 2026. Predictive envy is the most subtle and most real. It's not about malicious intent. Many people unconsciously react to the idea of your flourishing faster than to your present state. That reaction can take the form of flattering curiosity or competitive imitation. Energy leaks happen when you distribute your emotional or strategic resources too widely. Oversharing dilutes your charge and leaves less for implementation. Spiritual audits are the mirror the universe uses. When you declare something prematurely, tests appear. Not as punishment, but as calibration. These tests reveal whether your declaration is embodiment or merely aspiration. How do you tell a well-meaning listener apart from a spiritual predator or an energy leech? Watch for patterns. A well-meaning person asks questions that help you refine and ground the idea. They respect confidentiality and tend to offer resources rather than demand details. A drain seeks validation, tells their own story to equalize, or asks for specifics that feel like obligations. A spiritual predator will push for proof, seek influence, or try to position themselves as gatekeeper. None of this requires shaming anyone. It's about protecting your bandwidth. Now imagine the upside when you apply these guardrails consistently. When your next move is rooted before being revealed, competitors have nothing to model, and the universe can align openings without crowd interference. When deep insights incubate in private sanctuaries, their power accumulates unbothered and manifests as authentic capacity rather than loud content. When your transformation is embodied first, your relationships adjust to the new frequency because behavior, not announcements, rewrites the script. When releases are performed quietly, energy cords dissolve without public debate, and new space opens faster. There's a simple way to synthesize all of this into one guiding rule. Become it first, speak it later. Embodiment precedes explanation. Let your life be the proof, not your press release. This rule is not about secrecy as ego protection. It's about honoring process. The universe favors the person who practices integrity quietly because their signal arrives without the static of expectation. Hold this discipline with proportion and compassion. Guarding does not mean isolation. It means selective sharing. It means having trusted containers where you can process without creating spectral audiences. It means deciding in advance who gets access to which layer of your life. It also means practicing small experiments in discretion. Test how a short, private pilot behaves before launching publicly. Practice a 30-day boundary before announcing a major identity shift. Quietly end entanglements and observe the free space that follows. A few practical routines to anchor this practice. Create a confidentiality covenant with one trusted person, an explicit agreement about what is for your ears only. Develop a proof threshold. Set a metric that represents readiness to announce, e.g., 2 weeks of consistent behavior, 1 successful pilot, measurable reduction in reactivity. Keep a private journal of prophetic impressions or spiritual insights that you revisit after 30 days before deciding whether to share. Set an intention practice each morning that affirms embodiment over declaration. I will be the proof today. Remember to balance vigilance with generosity. The intention behind guarding is stewardship, not hoarding. You're preserving value for the right context, so that when you finally share, your move lands with the force it deserves and the support you actually need. Being cautious in 2026 does not mean you will never speak. It means you will build before you broadcast, and you will let your life be the invitation. When the universe quiets around a secret you are protecting, you are not being punished. You're being entrusted. Treated this way, guardedness becomes sacred work. The world will ask for headlines, but what you offer later will be depth. What you do in private will produce public fruit in time. As you steward these 4 domains, your next moves, your deepest insights, your emerging identity, and your releases, practice 3 overarching habits that make guarding sustainable. First, establish clear, repeatable rituals that reinforce privacy and integration, daily embodiment practices, weekly accountability calls with a trusted mentor, and a monthly review that checks whether you're ready to share. Second, build a small inner circle and name the role of each person. Who is accountability? Who is witness? Who is strategist? Explicit roles reduce the chance that someone who should be a witness becomes an accidental broadcaster. Third, cultivate a posture of compassionate discernment. Assume goodwill until patterns suggest otherwise, but protect your energy when patterns show leakage. And when you feel conflict about this balance between the urge to be seen and the wisdom of silence, use a simple litmus test. Will sharing this now change me or change the room? If the primary beneficiary is your narrative or validation, delay. If sharing materially helps others without undermining your capacity, consider a cautious disclosure. Over time, you will learn to feel the difference between an echo that affirms and a tide that threatens to pull you off course. Near the climax of this guidance, I want to remind you of the real prize. Guarding these 4 secrets is not a small defensive posture. It is a strategic offense. Mystery carries currency. When you hold power quietly, the universe can move unseen forces, connections, synchronicities, mentors, openings that don't need an audience to materialize. Opportunities often align when there is no crowd watching, when timing is pure and not distorted by expectation. Your discipline in protecting what is intimate invites an accelerated alignment, doors open that could not tolerate the heat of mass attention. Walk into 2026, not with fear, but with an empowered vigilance. Let the idea of stewardship replace the idea of secrecy. Stewardship asks, what needs protection for this thing to flourish? Secrecy asks, what can I hide? Choose stewardship. You are not dodging destiny by holding back. You are polishing the surface so the destiny can reflect fully when it arrives. Before I close, practice a short exercise in the privacy of your own mind. Picture the most fragile, most essential thing you are carrying right now. Your next move, a blessing, a new identity, a release. Name it in a single sentence to yourself. Now imagine wrapping it in a small, sealed container that only you can open. Who needs to know this right now and why? If the answer is no one or only my chosen container, keep it sealed. If the answer is, it will materially help others and does not drain me, set a measured plan for sharing. Hold to one final rule as you walk out of this message. Become it first, speak it later. This is the practical posture that will protect your momentum in 2026. Let your actions be the evidence that calls the world into alignment, not your announcements. If this resonated, share one guarded step you're taking or a boundary you're practicing in the comments below, or follow for more pattern-based guidance as the year unfolds. Walk forward with calm confidence. The universe is listening. Guard what matters, embody the change, and let the unseen do its work on your behalf.